Hey guys, what's up? It's Finch here, and we're back for another video about SSOU. This time around, we're going to be going over the top 10 Pokemon in SSOU. So what we have here is the top 10 Pokemon, in my opinion, with a full team of 6 honorable mentions. And we're going to go through all of them today. Not only are we going to go through the Pokemon individually, but we're also going to discuss the sets used in the metagame. I have 4 sets, or 4 variants of each Pokemon that have been seen within the metagame. In addition to that, I'm going to be discussing what might do well against them, what might team up against them, etc. All the nitty-gritty details. So this is your one-stop shop to know what's good in the SSU metagame and what might not be as effective if it's perhaps not listed or even mentioned alongside these Pokemon. So yeah, for those of you that are new to my channel, I do a lot of stuff on SSOU. We recently just topped 3,000 subscribers, and I'd love to keep going. We have a new project coming out on Monday called Metagame Mondays. We're going to be doing a lot more metagame analysis, but for now, I like to sprinkle in the metagame videos, especially with everything being so hyped with the DLC release, so definitely stay tuned if you like the SSOU content. But with that said, let's focus on the topic at hand, the top 10 Pokemon in SSOU. Before we get to that top 10, of course, there are some Pokemon that are not quite there, but I still want to give honorable mentions in this video, and those are going to be 4 fire types: Rotom Heat, Marowak Alola, Cinderace, and Volcarona, as well as Corviknight and Tangrowth. Also, before we get into this list, I just want to say this is not like, oh, the Pokemon like I like the most, or the Pokemon that I woke up today and was like, wow, I really want to use these Pokemon for some unknown reason, or the Pokemon that beat me the most on the ladder. No. These are the Pokemon that I believe are the best, the most viable, the most consistent, the most worth using in the metagame. So odds are, if a Pokemon makes this list, it is legitimate. Out of viability rankings, it would be S or A+, or even the top of A rank, to put it in context. For those of you that don't know what viability rankings are, check the Smogon forums. In particular, check this video I made within the last week discussing the rankings of viability in the metagame. I'm not going to give a whole lecture on that because it's a bit of an unnecessary sidebar for a video that mainly just focuses on the best Pokemon metagame. Sorry for that. I just have a fan in my basement that I had to turn off. But that aside, let's get on into those honorable mentions. So the first honorable mention, and the Pokemon that I personally would rank 11th, would be Rotom Heat. Now, Rotom Heat has been a great Pokemon in the SSU metagame since day one. And honestly, it got better and better as the pre-DLC metagame developed, as not only to become a good answer to fire types due to the fire typing, but also it was a great abuser of heavy-duty boots. It resisted things like Ice Beam from Kyurem, and it was also a good check to a slew of other things such as Excadrill and Sand Teams, which was more common. It was a decent soft check to Cinderace in that it was able to live any one hit and just cripple it. You can go down the list. There are other things it does well against too. But then all of a sudden, people were like, oh my god, it's going to actually kind of suck in this metagame because there's so many things to overwhelm it offensively, whereas chances around defensively to just stonewall it. But I couldn't feel more differently. While initially I completely understand why that impression was valuable to have and important to deter you from using it initially in a metagame that was super hectic, as the metagame continues to settle, Rotom Heat gets better and better and better, much like it did in the pre-home metagame. Why? The pre-DLC, well, pre-home too, but yeah, pre-DLC metagame. Why, might you ask? Well, first and foremost, it is able to set up nasty plots in the face of Magana and pretty much beat any variant of Calm Mind or Shift Gear or even Pivot Magana. Admittedly, it does have to hesitate before switching into a Specs, Focus Blast, or Flare Cannon, but even then it could sponge off a hit and potentially go for a Pain Split. Personally, my favorite set, however, is Nasty Plot plus Toxic, because if and when I could fit Wish Support around it, it's amazing. It's able to resist both stabs from Volcarona, get off a Toxic, and live even 2 Psychics if the right spread. At +1, of course. Lives 2 Psychics at +0 with any spread. On top of that, it's able to stomach any hit from Cinderace and do what it wishes. And the biggest thing about Rotom Heat is, despite not having special attack investment, it can destroy cores of like Slowbro or Toxapex plus Amoonguss or Tangrowth. Those kind of balance cores, especially if they have Fable or Magana in conjunction with them, which pretty much makes up half the teams in the metagame. Throwing those 4 plus a Mandibuzz or Corviknight plus a Fast Breaker like Shifu or Alakazam and then a Scarfer or a Revenge Killer like Dragapult, that makes up half the teams we're going to be seeing right now in the more standard central area of the metagame. Rotom Heat is just so amazing at forcing progress into the team. It's just destroying those water plus grass cores with its dual stab combination, and finding a turn to Nasty Plot with the prominence of fairy types and the defoggers that it can set up on is just not a challenge whatsoever. That, combined with the fact that it pairs really nicely with a lot of other bulky Pokemon you see in the metagame, forming great balance cores, makes it an amazing option in the metagame, and actually a really underrated offensive threat, on top of being a good utility presence thanks to Toxic and the Electric plus Fire typing with Levitate and Heavy Duty Boots. Moving on, there's also some other Pokemon that I'd like to, of course, give honorable mentions to, and one of those would happen to be Marowak Alola. For those of you that don't know, Marowak Alola is a Ghost and Fire type, and it gained access to this new move called Poltergeist. For those of you that don't know about Poltergeist, I'm going to say that it's basically the physical Ghost stab that we've wanted for years and years and years. While Shadow Bone has been a good option that Marowak specifically has been able to abuse since its short time upon releasing in Generation 7, admittedly, Marowak Alola fell from grace during that generation after things like Pheromosa and Genesect got banned. It just no longer served much of a purpose in this year defensively, and the opportunity cost to use it offensively just wasn't there when compared to other strong breakers in the tier. It still was a strong Pokemon, but it simply never surfaced again in OU. However, this generation is kind of back in that honeymoon phase, where there are a lot of things that are common in the metagame that's able to check. Those Pokemon in particular are Magana and Volcarona. But other options that it can potentially fare well against are Cinderace, Rotom Heat, offensively, whereas it does great against things like Corviknight, Ferrothorn defensively, while being able to one-shot things like Tangrowth and Slowbro if played properly as well. Of course, there are soft checks to it, like, for example, Foul Player Knockoff on Mandibuzz, and revenge killers such as Dragapult, Azumarill, etc. But a lot of those things are taking damage offensively from it, and also, I just think Marowak Alola is one of the best things at forcing progress right now. Poltergeist, again, is 110 base power Ghost Stab that has always been desired by Ghost types, and a lot of Pokemon get it, Marowak Alola included. The catch of it is that you fail to, if the opponent doesn't have an item equipped, then it's going to fail. So people have gone as far as not using an item on their Slowbro to wall Marowak Alola, which honestly I find kind of funny. In addition, it has coverage besides Flare Glitch, which it tends to run with Rockhead, or Fire Punch, which it runs with Lightning Rod if you wish to take things like Volt Switches from Magana and Rotom Heat, or other electric moves from Pokemon like Zeraora, although it can knock you off. And then it runs Earthquake, Swords Dance, Substitute, Stealth Rock, insert filler move depending on the team. Personally, I quite like this spread as it lets you live a +1 Psychic from Volcarona after Stealth Rock, while it's still outrunning things like Zero Speed Corviknight, Zero Speed Tyranitar, and Zero Speed Fable. Of course, though, you can run Max Speed. You can even run slower if you don't mind Zero Speed Corviknight as well. So, yeah, there are a lot of things you can do with Marowak. It's just a very potent Pokemon offensively, whereas it has a lot of practical upside on the defensive end of the spectrum, despite being a naturally relatively frail Pokemon. Also, the lack of pursuit in the metagame helps it as well. Next off, we have Cinderace. Cinderace does pretty well in the metagame as it stands. While it saw a bit more effectiveness during the late pre-DLC metagame, I still think there aren't too many things to hold it back now. Admittedly, though, it is seeing a bit more of a selectivity in what it should use. For instance, facing things like Slowbro means that I always would run something like Sucker Punch or U-Turn on it, as using the classical Pyro Ball, Zen Headbutt, High Jump Kick coverage just isn't going to cut it in my eyes. Even then, Sucker Punch gets a little dicey against Slowbro, but if you're able to boost up repeatedly, predicting non-attacking moves, or get a status on it, such as Paralysis or Poison, then you're actually going to be able to ultimately beat it if you play your cards right in the long haul, but it is a process, and you have to be conservative with your Cinderace in the early game. With that said, Sucker Punch is also great for revenge killing things like the faster Alakazam and Dragapult, whereas Zen Headbutt, in my eyes, is necessary in almost all Cinderace sets lacking Electro Ball, which is very niche, in order to hit things like Toxapex, which are very common. Pyro Ball just gives you stab, bulk up is to boost its stats, and give it a fighting type. Personally, I quite like this spread in particular, seeing as you're not seeing much Keldeo barring Scarf sets, because Scarf Flip Turn, Stone Edge is cool, Flip Turn lets you pivot out with like U-Turn, and Stone Edge is cool to revenge kill Volcarona. So you will only miss out on things like Gengar, which you Sucker Punch anyway, and Terrakion, which is not very common in our Shifu metagame. Because of that, I view Adamant Cinderace as the best set, and since there's nothing really in the speed tier if you go max, you're still slower than the base 108s, there's not many 105s in the metagame, etc. You only really need to creep base 100, so I just run 224 speed. I throw 32 extra EVs into HP, which is cool, because let's say you're in a 1v1 versus Azumarill, you're both at full health, or they're near full health and you're at full health. You go for Bulk Up as they go for Belly Drum, all of a sudden you're fighting type, and you have +1 defense, you actually have a better chance of stomaching a +6 Aqua Jet than not, and you could retaliate with a +1 Zen Headbutt with a Stab Psychic typing into a +1 Sucker Punch to always take it out after the Belly Drum, Citrus, and potentially Stealth Rock damage after that. Without Stealth Rock, I believe that might be a roll, but yeah, it's actually really cool that you could kind of use Cinderace to win that 1v1, when otherwise an Aqua Jet Azumarill would just dominate you. Of course, there is a chance that they don't want to mess around with Gunk Shot, which is a move that Cinderace learns, but is not one that really is used much, in which case they just Aqua Jet, and then your bulk up is kind of going to be futile because you're going to get 2 KO'd, but normally they do try and get greedy and Belly Drum in your face to try and generate a sleep, especially if the remainder of your team is sort of vulnerable to it, so provoking that sequence in a lot of games can be a really positive one in my eyes. Next up, we have Volcarona. Volcarona is a very polarizing Pokemon. In some games, it's going to do absolutely amazing. In other games, it's going to fail to carry its own weight. And that's why I failed to list it in the top 10 personally, just because of the inconsistency that comes alongside it. For example, if you're facing things like Volcarona, or the bulk-invested Marowak, or something even like a toxic specially defensive Rotom Heat, or, an Azumarill, it's going to be hard to make much progress. Maybe you could get a Killer Tool offensively if you pivot in right and just use it as an all-out attacker against things like Azumarill or Marowak teams, but Chansey, it's going to completely stonewall it. And all in all, the opportunity cost that comes alongside it relative to more consistently hitting breakers that have less upside is really noteworthy and makes me kind of hesitant to use Volcarona in any generation. With that said, though, it does have an amazing upside. Teams that are unprepared for it or have some preparations for it, but ultimately those things are needed for other Pokemon or easy to chip and condition down or hit with the first time of Volcarona, then come back in later on and sweep because you have heavy-duty boots, so you're not constantly pressed to remove hazards, which is something that Volcarona has this generation that it didn't have previously. The upside is amazing. You can just clean sweep teams, and it's been amazing since day one. So it's definitely a top 15 Pokemon in my eyes, but I don't think it can quite scratch top 10. Others definitely disagree with that, and that's fine. But personally, I view offensive Volcarona as an absolute behemoth, as a special setup sweeper, but it still has its shortcomings, unfortunately. Next up, we have a Pokemon that previously was seen as a top 3 to 5 Pokemon in metagame, but has seen a fall from grace, and that is Corviknight. While things like Magnezone being added to the metagame, as well as the prominence of the aforementioned 4 fire types, is noteworthy, truth be told, what's truly holding back Corviknight is the fact that Mandibuzz is simply needed more in the current metagame. Mandibuzz fares better against things like Alakazam, Aegislash, Gengar, Dragapult, Cinderace, etc. You can go down the list as well. While Corviknight does better at things like Excadrill, completely destroying it, Foul Play Mandibuzz with physical defense has been adapted to help with things like the aforementioned Cinderace, and also, what else was it? It helped, and Marowak. Because of that, you're also able to live a +2 Iron Hit or even Rock Slide, barring Life Orb Rock Slide that's adamant, with Corviknight's physically defensive set, which people are using because it still checks Alakazam with physically defensive variants, and just kill back with Foul Play against Excadrill +2 or Tokyo for +0. So ultimately, Corviknight is still very valuable, and on teams with other dark types such as Shifu or Tyranitar or Bisharp, actually Corviknight is called upon more often than not as the defogger in those balanced or bulky offensive builds, but that aside, unfortunately Corviknight has fallen from the best defogger above Mandibuzz, and there's kind of been a role reversal. Of course, it's still great, even if it's Trapple in Magnezone, and sometimes there's preference in the metagame to use Mandibuzz. It's still Corviknight after all. It's better than Skarmory, for instance, which also is another form of competition, which I neglected to mention initially. So, yeah, some stallier teams tend to run Skarmory over Corviknight, which also can chip away its usage, but still, Corviknight, Body Press, Brave Bird, Iron Head, U-Turn as potential attacking moves, combined with potential bulk upsets, and of course Roost and Defog as great utility. All in all, is a very effective Pokemon in the metagame. It simply has to pick its spots a bit more than it did before when it was very splashable in the metagame. And the next Pokemon, and the quote-unquote last man here, the 16th Pokemon, is Tangrowth, but I want to say that Amoonguss is virtually neck and neck with it. It's just that Toxapex tends to be used a lot more than Amoonguss as the poison type right now. So I'd say Tangrowth is just a tad more indicative. It does better as well against things like Urshifu, and I guess it also lacks the weakness to things like Psychic, and also the neutrality to ground is it's resistant. So that's cool, as there's so many fire resist right now due to everyone being very conscious of Magana that the poison typing on Toxapex on Amoonguss just isn't needed, especially since you can run Tangrowth with things like the aforementioned Toxapex. But anyway, Rocky Helmet Tangrowth is a really cool Pokemon right now. It's great against the normal slew of physical attackers you're going to see, barring things like Cinderace and Marowak Alola. So, yeah, that about wraps up our honorable mentions column. We've already been rambling for almost 15 minutes, so now let's break on in to the top 10 Pokemon in the SSOU metagame. At number 10, we have Alakazam. It's one of the newer Pokemon in the metagame, and I definitely respect it. Personally here, I'm showcasing 4 sets on all of the Pokemon. Things like Magana, it's much easier to see 4 sets. In fact, I could probably go on for 10 different variants of Magana and 6 different unique sets. However, things like Alakazam and Urshifu, it's hard to generate 4 sets, and seeing as I'm a stickler for parallel structure, sometimes you might see some stretches here or some things that aren't completely tested, but I can assure you that the concept behind all these Pokemon is relatively sound. The first set is my favorite set. You're on 28 defense to live a Choice Band of Azumarill Aqua Jet, although that's rare, it's still noteworthy, and an Earthquake from Hippowdon, because that's a bit more likely to encounter. And you're a Nasty Plot, Psychic, Focus, Blast, and Recover. It's that simple. Without Sableye or Mega Sableye in the game, that coverage is not really immunized by anything. Of course, things like Psychic types or specific other Pokemon are able to resist both your stabs, but even then, a lot of them aren't able to do a ton back. Finally, things like Chansey can wall you, but having to recover and the ability to nasty cloud his face actually means that you're very favored to win the 1v1, even if it's Thunderwave. But if it's not Thunderwave, then you 100% win the 1v1. So yeah, all things considered, it's very fast, faster than things like Cinderace, Keldeo, etc. And it's also very strong with, I believe, 135 special attack and life orbs, even if you take out the 20 EVs, yeah. And it's just able to decimate things like physically defensive Corviknight. At +2 to it kills Chansey. Toxapex and Amoonguss can forget about it, as well as any other physical wall. And Focus Blast is great for steel types and dark types. It complements Psychic so nicely in this metagame. So yeah, this is my favorite Alakazam and arguably the best set. It is just a great Pokemon. Wait, hold up. Did this? Oh, crap. I got to go back to music. 1 second, guys. Yeah, I don't know about that. Anyway, as we were saying, Alakazam is just a great option in the metagame. I'm so sorry that this did what it did. Oh boy, hopefully that doesn't ruin the video. But yeah, that aside, there are some other variants of Alakazam I wish to highlight. The first one is another Life Orb set. This one runs knockoff. It's able to knock off things like Assault Vest or Leftovers, Pivot Magana. I was about to say Celesteela, but no, this is not Generation 7, so pardon me there. But also Chansey and other special walls such as, I don't know, especially defensive Corviknight or Jirachi. Yeah, so those are good options. You could also potentially, if you're flirting with 3 attacks, Dazzling Gleam is great to hit our Shifu without risking Focus Blast missing, and also same goes for our Dragon. Shadow Ball is cool to hit opposing Alakazam and other Psychic types like Slowbro, but Slowbro can't really do much to you, and other Alakazam, I mean, you kind of just accept the neutrality of the matchup, so yeah. It also does more to Aegislash, which I guess is a big deal, resisting the Psychic and being immune to the Focus Blast. But truth be told, Aegislash has seen so many better days. You might notice that it hasn't even cracked my top 16. And honestly, I view it in more to the 20 to 25 range. It's unfortunate how much the Mighty have fallen in this part of the generation, but I think Aegislash will see brighter days ahead, so definitely stay tuned for that. And Shadow Ball is a great option to hit it. Next up, we have Focus Sash Alakazam. It's a bit more of an offensive measure to do well against opposing offensive teams. You could stomach any one hit and get things like a Thunder Wave or knockoff off. It's also great at revenge killing. It plays a similar role to Black-White. Unfortunately, with Defog being as common as it is, and a lot of bulky Pokemon really not minding a non-Nasty Plot, non-Life Orb Alakazam, it is very limited in what it can do. So all in all, I don't view this set as ideal, but again, a lot of people seem to like Focus Sash on it just as a testament to old generation viability, but personally, I would advise those people to try out Life Orb, just give it a taste and see what they like. Anyway, next off we have the Scarf variant. Scarf with Trick is really cool in a pursuitless metagame because it actually is kind of like an amazing revenge killer, but also tricking things like Chansey and Magana, that Scarf, and then being able to set up a Nasty Plot later is a really cool dynamic to be able to cripple them and then set up later on. And a lot of those things like slower Maganas and Chansey, or even, Mandibuzz or Corviknight aren't going to be faster than you despite getting the Scarf from you, and you can gain an item like Leftovers, which could be valuable to you. So yeah, I think this set is completely underrated, and I definitely would advise trying it out as well, but admittedly, I haven't tested it quite as much as the others. Next up, we're going to go to number 9. I believe that number 9 is, come on, click. There we go. Number 9 is Excadrill. Excadrill is a great option in the metagame right now. Not only does it have a great typing for things like Magana and Fable, but on top of that, also is able to just deal with other Fairy types and resistances in general. It's resistant to so many types: Steel, Fairy, Flying. It's immune to Electric, it's resistant to Bug. We could go on. Yeah, Psychic, it resists. So yeah, there are a ton of things it does well against. Just to list some others: Togekiss, Tyranitar. It's able to potentially beat Toxapex barring Scald Burns. Resist Scissor Stabs. Any electric move it could be immune to. It's also revenge kill things like Magana and Marowak, while also potentially walling Magana barring on Focus Blast variant. So yeah, all things considered, it's arguably one of the better answers to Magana in the metagame, which is huge, considering all 4 of those fire types are also up there, among other things that we're going to be talking about later. And Magana is a great Pokemon metagame, but yeah. Personally, my favorite set right now is just Swords Dance, Earthquake, Iron Head, Rapid Spin with the spread, offensive, same old, Mold Breaker, but there's a lot of versatility. There are other moves you can use, such as Stealth Rock, Rock Slide, Toxic. I've even seen Substitute and Protect on some stray sets, although I can't advocate for them personally as I've never used them yet. But yeah, of course, yeah, Stealth Rock. I prefer Stealth Rock running a bit of bulk. This lets you always live a Focus Blast from Sash, Alakazam, and Magana, barring like a Specs Magana, of course. And on top of that, Toxic is really cool with Stealth Rock to help cripple things like Mandibuzz, a very common defogger, as well as forcing bulky waters to think twice before pivoting in non-stop. Next up, we have the Sand Rush variant. Sand Rush Drill. Personally, I like Rock Slide on right now for Rotom Heat and Mandibuzz. You could potentially force flinches on either of them or kill a Rotom Heat if you're at +2. Oh, this does have a nature, but yeah, I just run Jolly on all of them. It's not worth it. Things like Adamant or Shifu, opposing Excadrill, and other Pokemon in this speed tier, such as Rotom Heat, are really worth running plus speed for. I promise you there's a whole bloated list. I can bring up speed tiers if need be in the comments, so let me know if you want to discuss that in the comment section. But yeah, Life Orb is a viable item as well, but I would only use Life Orb with Wish support personally, or even Healing Wish support if you're running an offensive Sand team. Next up, we have the Sash lead set. It's pretty cool, all things considered. Basically, on a hyper-offensive team, you can set up Stealth Rock turn 1, and if they bring in something like their Mandibuzz to Foul Play to Tokyo you, or the Corviknight to Tokyo you with Body Press, before they get a defog off turn 2, you could Steel Beam. So you're going to kill the Drill, but they're not going to get a defog off, and that's going to let you bring in something like your Cinderace to threaten Corviknight, or your Magana or Azumarill to threaten the Mandibuzz, and that's just going to go a long way in the long haul. It also gives you a last-ditch effort option against Toxic Spikes, getting a rapid spin-off, as hyper-offensive teams tend to be very weak to Toxic Spikes, in my opinion. At number 8, we're going to have another amazing Pokemon in the metagame, Mandibuzz. Wait, is that number 7? Hold the phone. Ooh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh boy. We're missing number 8, guys. You know what this means? This is gonna mean you guys are gonna see me pause this video for a second to figure this out. Okay, so I came up with a bit of a makeshift solution because I'm not giving you guys a true top 10 because I forgot number 8 in the making of this video. We've decided that we're going to give a second column of honorable mentions. So that is going to be Among Us, a great pivot. It really pairs well with Mandibuzz on bulky offensive teams. In particular, I love the physically defensive variant right now. It's able to tank a Wicked Blow from a Shifu, then pivot out to Mandibuzz, or easily take a couple close combats with ease. So those two can kind of form a core to check it. In addition to that, it's also really good against things like fighting types. It's able to live any hit from beginning and get a Spore off, which is huge. It's also good against Zero Aura. Oh yeah, it's the best Zero Aura counter in the game, pretty much. And on top of all of that, it just has a lot of great resistances. I mean, Fairy, Fighting, yeah. Sorry, this is like completely like non-scripted. I don't really script my videos normally, right? But normally at least like coming with the sets and I know what I'm going to say, and this is just improv. Next up, we have Hydreigon. This would probably be like, in the 17 to 20 range, if you will. Hydreigon is a good Life Orb Nasty Plot Pokemon. It also synergizes nicely with Magana or Alakazam. They kind of break for each other, or vice versa, Scarf, I find underwhelming, but yeah, Hydreigon's still a top 20 Pokemon in my eyes. Then we have Azumarill. The Belladrum set is amazing. You could also run a Thick Fat set with Whirlpool and Power Song, or I guess Choice Band and Assault Vest are okay too. But yeah, Belladrum, Azumarill is just phenomenal. Chansey, mandatory mention of Stall being Stall. It definitely has a place in the metagame. It's not a great place, but it is a place. And also with Teleport, it can work on balanced teams as well, I suppose. We have Rillaboom, which in my eyes is around the 2021 mark. Grassy Surge is cool. Makes Choice Band sets with Grassy Slide, Woodhammer, Knockoff, and U-Turn, or Superpower, High Horsepower, other options you could see. Yeah, I got it right. Shout out to the person who always is there for me, knowing that I'm saying High Horsepower instead of Stomping Tantrum, because I always confuse the two. Shout out to my man in the comments. You know who you are, man. Anyway, we also have Gengar. Gengar could easily be Aegislash here. It's just both those ghost types are like in the fringe of the 20 to 25 area, as I mentioned with Aegislash before. But yeah, that honorable mention number 2. So yeah, we're going to move this down. I'm so sorry I forgot number 8, guys. This is the most unprofessional thing I've done. I've done a lot of unprofessional things in this channel, unfortunately. But yeah, no, at number 7/8/whatever, it's just, we got 2 Mandibuzz slots now. It's 7 and 8. Yeah, sure. We have Mandibuzz. There are 4 sets you can run, but basically the gist of it is, it's a defensive defogger. Foul Play, Roost, U-Turn, Defog is my favorite set with physically defensive oriented. It helps tank things like Wicked Blows. It's also one of the better extra answers in the game if it doesn't get flinched out. Foul Play makes it great against that. Of course, there are other ways to use it though. Brave Bird plus Knockoff, for example. There's also a more offensive Brave Bird knock set. The defensive one's just kind of standard, defensive. You don't have Foul Play, so you don't need speed for Bisharp. And even on teams with Foul Play, you don't always have to run speed for Bisharp. You have something like Como or Shifu. So yeah, Bisharp has seen better days to say the least. But yeah, I just prefer running only Aegislash with this one. But more importantly, this one you see all the way at the bottom here. With this attack, you can one-shot all Volcarona with Brave Bird. And on top of that, For Shifu close combats too, either form, and that -1, you're able to kill it with Brave Bird after that. It's crazy because you only have 65 attacks. You have to invest this much to kill a -1 Pokemon with 120 base power super effective move. But yeah, it's kind of more cute than anything else. But I guess it's worth noting. I needed a 4th set. So yeah, I've used it before once or twice. And then we have Toxic Grants, which is cool to catch things like Rotom Heat. Why is it Eviolite? Hello? Oh my god. This video is a little sloppier than I thought it would be. Yeah, it catches Rotom Heat and Fire types like Azumarill. I guess not Clefable unless it's unaware, but yeah. And then other switch-ins such as Slowbro and Tangrowth. And I guess Zeraora too. Yeah, so that's cool. Anyway, getting into number 6/, we're just going to say number 6 at this point. We have the infamous Toxapex. Personally, especially defensive with Toxic and Haze and Scald is great right now in my eyes. It's able to be like a one-stop shop to Shift Gear Magana, barring Electro Ball variants. And on top of that, it's really good against Volk because it could live a +1 Psychic Toxic and then switch out and put Volk on a timer. It's also really good at just forcing, Cripple, be it Scald status or Toxic status. Yeah. You know the drill, especially defensive, also lets you live a hit from things like Alakazam, Specs Aegislash, etc. And you're still living a Zen Headbutt from even a banded Cinderace, which is cool. And I believe you're still living a +2 Lucha Acrobatics. So yeah, next up we have physically defensive. I prefer Rocky Helmet in this Shifu metagame, but same move, same deal. You still live a +1 Psychic from Volcarona, thankfully, but with much less health to spare, and Alakazam with Life Orb can one-shot you, so be careful. Proceed with caution in those scenarios. But yeah, physically defensive packs are still viable. I just prefer Rocky Helmet on it. Next up, we have mixed defense variants. I like Toxic Spikes on these. It's kind of what I go toward because it lets you get the most opportunities to get the most mileage out of it. It still lets you tank things like Urshifu, but with this spread, you're always living a hit from Alakazam, I believe. And on top of that, you're living +1 Volcarona after Stealth Rock and I think Spikes or Stealth Rock and Burn or Sand. I don't know what it is. Yeah, there are a lot of things that went into this spread, though. And you're also better at taking things like Shadow Balls, and you still live like a Life Orb Plasma for Stealth Rock too. So yeah, and then the final set is similar. We have Knockoff here. This is the spread that always lives Alakazam. I'm sorry. The other one always lives Life Orb Alakazam. Not always, does a majority of the time. This one always does. In Knockoff for things like Alakazam, Specs, Aegislash, etc. And you can still pimp out physical defense to help with things like Cinderace. So yeah, Toxapex is an amazing Pokemon regenerator, yada yada yada. You guys definitely don't want to hear me ramble on about Toxapex. I could make a 2-hour-long video on Toxapex alone and its history in Generation 7 NATO-U. In fact, maybe one day I will if enough people request it in the comments. So I'll say an hour long. But yeah, if you guys want an hour-long video on Toxapex, let me know in the comments. But I have a feeling a lot of you don't. You guys want to hear more about the instant gratification offensive type of Pokemon. So we're going to hopefully be getting to one next. Nope, Clefable. That's the exact opposite. All right, we're going to get to it soon with Dragapult. My bad, guys. At number 5, we have Clefable. Clefable is a great Pokemon right now, but it doesn't use the Wish Teleport set as often, as so many things take advantage of that. Protect, like for example, Urshifu just shreds Protect. Volcarona can set up all over that set. Things like, say, Aegislash do really well against a Gengar, Bisharp, Cinderace. Oh yeah, Cinderace has made that set obsolete as well. Yeah, Magana. So Marowak. It's just the lack of knockoff status, Thunderwave, etc. makes it way too passive for my liking in a lot of teams. So that's why my favorite set right now is the knockoff Thunderwave variant. Wait, wrong nature. But yeah, knockoff is great for things like Marowak, Chansey. Pretty much everything gets hit by knockoff in this generation. Displacing items with knockoff and trick is just a strategy you guys see me constantly referring to in my videos, specifically my lives. I just use a team with 2 trick users for fuck's sake. So yeah, that's really cool. Of course, be careful if using knockoff on a team with a Poltergeist user, just a heads up. Thunderwave is great for things like Volcarona, things like Toxapex to slow it down, and potentially get free turns to set up with things like Magana or Alakazam. It's also really cool on opposing Magana to slow down your sweeps as well. Let your revenge kill it with things like Cinderace and Volcarona and Rotom Heat, etc. Yeah, and other Clef, it's the only strategy you can get on them, so why the hell not? The spread with 160 defense you see on this and this one are really good because it lets you live 2 adamant hits from Urshifu stab moves, close combat, and wicked blow. And on top of that, it also lives a +2 acrobatics from adamant Halucha 100% of the time. So yeah, and seeing his Charms at an all-time low in the metagame, taking 2 Ice Beams just isn't a priority at the moment, but feel free to run especially defensive if you still feel that way. Then we have the classic Combine set. It can run Thunderbolt over Flamethrower. You lose out on Extra Magana, but you do hit Toxapex with that if you so please. And the last variant is just the unaware variant that I've kind of become infamous for hitting on, but hey, it's a thing. Heal Bell, because you're tend to using unaware and stall teams over teleport, and Yeah, no, I wouldn't really use Unaware Clef, but if you're using like a specific stall team that requires it is Unaware user, then I guess this is pretty much what you do. So yeah, I hope that helps. Next up, we're gonna. Oh, also Unaware, to be fair to it, is really good against Hyper Offense. Anyway, next up, we're gonna have Dragapult. Dragapult's one of my favorite Pokemon metagame. I love the spec set with status support, things like Thunderwave Bro, Toxic Skull, Toxic Specs, kind of, but oh my god, Tox Specs, I'm sorry. A whole slew of other status inducers, Amoonguss pairs nicely with it, Clef, Toxic Drill, etc. And just it abuses that with Specs Hacks being so strong, 2 killing things like Magana and Clefable, barring Selfless Magana, which are 3 kills still. And yeah, Draco's great to just nuke things. Thunder's really cool for things like Azumarill and Mandibuzz. Also, it can one-shot a Bisharp after Stealth Rock if they try and set up on you. Anyway, beyond that, we also have Life Orb, Dragon Dance set, the mix one. I quite like this in hyper offensive teams. You guys have seen me showcase it a few times. I think it's great now, especially in a metagame with Chansey. And a bit more of a specially defensive usage of Tox Specs. However, physically defensive Foul Play Mandibuzz is a headache to it, so gotta be careful there, gotta chip that down. Personally, I want to use Silvally Ghost plus this set in the future, so definitely pay attention for Alive with that in the future. Hint, hint, hint. Anyway, we also have the Spell Tag Classic Wispex variant, and then the Dragon Fang variant with Dragon Darts, Steel Wing, Will-O-Wisp, and U-Turn. Ever since Chansey came out, people have been using this set. I believe Tala used it on a sample team, and that kind of started its popularity. With the 120 base attack, Dragon Darts with the Dragon Fang and Adamant is really strong, guys. The issue is Steel Wing is relied upon for coverage for Fairy types, which isn't super strong, so it leaves things like Azumarill and Magana. You really can only hit them with a weak neutral Steel Wing or a Will-O-Wisp, which is fine and all, but you wish you'd have something like Hex to abuse them with status. So yeah, there are some upsides. It's also a great answer to Volcarona. This set and the Dragon Dance set is amazing because you're able to nuke them with Dragon Darts and live even a +1 Psychic after Stealth Rocks. So yeah, big upside. Actually, I'm going to make this minus defense to help with that roll. But yeah, big upside, but there is some downside to specifically this physical variant as well. Just figured it was worth noting, but Dragapult is as good as ever, and I can't imagine it dropping in popularity in the near future. Definitely try out Dragapult, guys. Alright, we're getting closer to the end of this video, which is good because I forgot to bring my water with me, and we're at the 30-minute mark already. So, next up, we have Wooper and Wooloo. Guys, thank you so much for all the support lately. Again, it means the world to me. We are over 3,000 subscribers. In fact, we eclipsed 3.2 thousand today, and it's already been like 2 days since we hit 3,000. So if we keep getting 100 to 200 a day, then we're going to quickly get to 5,000, which is amazing. So again, keep up the support. Let me know your thoughts on this list in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video if you enjoy my content, and if you enjoy it in general, then please subscribe to the channel, guys. It would mean the world to me. There are some things I'm still working on. I know sometimes I'm not the best at enunciating my words, and sometimes I talk a little bit quickly, perhaps even in this video, but I'm telling you guys, I'm getting better and better, and we're going to be getting bigger and bigger as a channel with more people and more content. The World Cup of Pokemon is coming up, which is all SSOU this year, no old generation, so that's amazing. Also, plenty of draft content, and we're going to get a live up every single day. So make sure to stay tuned for that, guys. This is the OU tier leader, tournament player, all this big stuff I got going on, and I want to make sure that I could showcase this all to you guys because I love the community we're building. So definitely stay tuned. Be sure to show your support in the comment section, likes, and subscribe. All right, anyway, plugging myself aside, we're going to get into the top 3. First and foremost, we have Slowbro. Personally, I initially loved the Thunderwave variant, but now I love Future Sight with Urshifu or even Heracross. It's amazing what it can do, guys. Definitely try out Future Sight Slowbro, but yeah, the premise of the first 2 sets, be it Future Sight or Thunderwave, is with heavy duty boots, you can switch in any hazard and pretty much take less than 33 from resisted attacks like Cinderace Pyro Ball or weaker U-turns or even things like Scalds, and just pivot out. You could kind of be a semi-status absorber as well because you're not staying in for a long time, so taking a status or a Scald Burn or even a Thunderwave is just not a big deal. It's a great check to things like Cinderace. It's just an amazing pivot in general. It opens up things for offensive Pokemon. It's honestly bordering upon staple status in bulky offensive teams, which is amazing for a Pokemon like Slowbro. But yeah, it's the pivot you guys have always wanted, and now it's here. Of course, though, beyond the Future Sight, which helps hit things like Toxapex and Amoonguss, and even physical walls like Tangrowth, opening up for Urshifu, also to Powdon. What's really cool is Thunderwave to cripple things like opposing Slowbro, Alakazam, Dragapult, Amoonguss, Tangrowth, Mandibuzz, Corviknight, etc., Ferrothorn, all those things, Hydreigon. Yeah, it's just really helpful if you have Slower Breaker like Marowak on your team, because that's going to turn things that, you might 2-kill them, but they eventually into like you 1v1 them if they switch in on you. So yeah, that's great. Next up, we have the Itemless set, which can run Future Sight or Thunderwave. Itemless is pretty much the same deal, but the thing is that Poltergeist from Marowak and any other user, like the random ass Golurk I used the other day, is actually not going to affect you, which means you counter Marowak, which is a cool tech. We actually saw it in the World Cup game earlier today, or well, it's going to be yesterday now because I'm uploading this tomorrow, but yeah. And last set, we also have a classical Combine set. I like it with Rocky Helmet to punish weaker physical attacks, or resisted ones like Close Combat from our Shifu, or random weak U-turns from things like Mandibuzz and Corviknight. So yeah, punishing them is cool. I don't love Combine right now. Too many random statuses and overwhelming presences offensively, but it potentially can work as well. I guess also like Trick Specs, Trick Scarf kind of sets could work too. Particularly Trick Specs with, I've seen that like you just run Trick over the future sights just Thunderwave, and then Specs or whatever item you want over the heavy duty boots. It's okay, it's not amazing. But speaking of things that actually are amazing, at number 2 we have Magana. Magana I made a whole video on, so unfortunately I'm not going to elaborate on it too much. If you want to know my thoughts on it, I made a video on Magana and SSU. Let's discuss Magana and SSU. And recently I made a video on fairy types in SSU, so be sure to check both of those videos out. I'll try and leave them in the description if I remember. But in the meantime, Magana is a very versatile Pokemon. It could run Iron Defense Combine sets with Draining Kiss Third Power, or Shift Gear All-Out Attacker sets, or even Shift Gear Combine sets with those moves and weakness policy, working particularly on screen teams. And last, my personal favorite set is Trick Specs. It did amazingly in the live we recorded last night. So yeah, be sure to let me know your favorite Magana set. I'm not going to go into the details and teammates for every single set, just say I already made a video on that, but definitely check it out if that's something you're into. And finally, at number 1, and honestly, Magana, it's kind of like 1A and 1B, because in my eyes, Magana is just as good as Shifu, but the most broken Pokemon. It's kind of like the tiebreaker I use, and probably one of, if not the single best Pokemon in the metagame, is Shifu Single Strike. In particular, is due to this one set, the Choice Bander. And personally, I love Jolly with Poison Jab and either U-Turn or Sucker Punch, but Adamante's viable as well, as you see in the second set, and Iron Head's cool if you're scared about wheezing and you don't mind not hitting a Azumarill and Primarina, because Primarina is not really common, and Azumarill you took kill anyway, so yeah, that's fair. But anyway, Close Combat, Wicked Blow, just amazing combination. You're really only resisted by fairy types, and you're able to break through most of them anyway, with 130 base attack and 2 stabs that equate to 120, which Close Combat is base 120, and Wicked Blow 120, but it always crits. So yeah, it's just amazing what you can see from this Pokemon. U-turn to generate momentum and chip things and go for mid-grounds, etc. It's just so strong, and honestly, aside from Weezing, which can't even counter Iron Head variants, there really are no counters to it, so people are going out of their way running things like physically defensive Poison Regenerator Pokemon like Amoonguss and Toxapex, plus things like Mandibuzz or Magana to resist the Dark types, or they're running the 136 or 160 defense on their Clefable, so have 2 hits, but even then, if switching to Poison Jab or Iron Head, forget about it. So yeah, there are just some amazing things you can do with Shifu, especially if you pair it with things like Thunderwave to slow opponents down, or Teleport / show U-turn to get it in. It can always force progress. Choice Band Shifu is amazing. It's unlike any other breaker in the metagame. It's so strong, but I also made a video on it recently, so if I'm going to belabor this point anymore on the Choice Banded set, then you guys are just going to be hearing me go off like a broken record. So yeah, the moves you could use. Sub Bulk Up is a set I used recently as well to a lot of success, kind of an alternate perspective, because people try to pivot in things like those Amoonguss and those Toxapex, but you can set up on them in particular. This spread lets you always live a Scald from Toxic find a substitute, and you just set up in their faces and eventually break them down. It's really cool, but admittedly it lacks the firepower to break through things like Clefable and other fairy types. So yeah, you gotta be careful with what you do, but it's definitely a viable option in the metagame as well. And last but not least, speaking of alternative options under Shifu, we have the Choice Scarf set, which is fine. Iron Head's not even going to break... Oh, crap, I just changed it to a Cinderace. No. Get back here. Choice Scarf, Close Combat, Wicked Blow, Poison Jab, U-turn, and give that max. Yep. Poison Jab is going to be able to kill Clef and Azumarill and Primarina still, but Iron Head won't kill Physically Defensive Weezing, so Poison Jab is the best filler in this, and U-turn you definitely need on this set over Sucker Punch to pivot around, because Choice Scarf doesn't get any 2 kills in the physical wall, so yeah, it's a lot less effective, but it can work on some teams. But yeah, that's all I have to say on our Shifu, the strongest breaker in the metagame for sure. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think of this top 10 list, as well as all the honorable mentions, including the accidental ones. Thank you so much for all the support lately, guys. Again, really, it does mean the world to me, and I love knowing that I'm helping a lot of you guys out. But in the meantime, let me know what you think of this list. Let me know what you think of the top 10, and let me know if you guys think I should make an hour-long video on the history of Toxapex. So yeah, have a great day, guys. This is Finch. Peace out.